What's on the menu for today?
Welcome in. It's week 4, halfway in the OUA season. Things are starting to get a little bit more clear on the playoff picture. We know there's going to be a logjam in the middle, but the top is definitely starting to separate itself. The reigning top dogs, the Western Mustangs, are on bye this week, but we still have 5 games of action. Connor, we're going to start with your alma mater, so kick us off.
Yeah, the Guelph Griffins taking on the U Ottawa GGs. I'll start with Ottawa. I'll give you Guelph. I think that's an easy one. How do you match up against JP Simikinda? He has been kind of the identity of the GG's offense. Now he has been able to let Ben Miracle open up and throw it a little bit, but still he has been the guy that you need to stop. So how does Guelph's D take care of him? And then what are you going to do to counteract James Peter and TK Kevin Victome on the back end of the GG's defense? They're solid across the board, it looks like, this year.
Well, Guelph, second worst run defense in the country. I know the Windsor game kind of slants those stats, and they played against Western. But if you're Ottawa, you're going to have to start to target them with that ground game and go from there. For Guelph, though, Jake Helfrich, the quarterback who started last week's game for his first start of the year, all of a sudden they go from what's our quarterbacking situation to, oh, wait, we have the player of the week. 370 yards, 4 total touchdowns. Like you said, TK, James Peter, they have been in charge. How does Helfrich attack this GG's defense?
They got a strong front seven too, good pass rush. So I'm curious to see how it matches up there. But we got 5 other games to get through, and I can't spend too much time talking about the school I went to. So we got to move on. Mac, Waterloo coming up. Both these teams, it was kind of like grinded out games last week that they just didn't really come out on top of. So off the top, I guess we're both curious to see how these teams bounce back and who is going to claw for the win.
Well, for Waterloo, this is an interesting one because we saw them play York week 1. Then they had that early bye. They came back last week and lost a last-second game to Guelph. We need to see who Waterloo is. This is one of the teams that we still aren't quite sure of yet. We know that Mr. Cabin, the heir to Trey Ford's throne, he's been fantastic. 7 touchdowns, second in the OUA for that mark behind Evan Hillock. But he gets to go up against one of the veteran quarterbacks in the country, which is Andreas Dueck. So we get a nice rookie versus vet kind of game, but I'm interested to see how the young quarterback responds.
Yeah, and he does have some talent, some weapons around him that makes his life a little bit easier, right? Like his receivers lead the league 1 and 2 in receiving yards, and then Nick Sua does his thing too, a couple touchdowns. He's had 2 great games on the ground as well. But Mac in their own right, Dueck, man, efficiency. High efficiency guy.
Yeah, and with Jackson Cooling and Jacob Patton, I mean, he's going to have the weapons that Andres Dueck, that is, he's going to have the weapons required to make anything happen in a game. It's just whether they put it all together in all 3 phases of the game that determines Mac's outcome.
Certainly will. Another one, I mean, I'm going to tell you, I'm looking forward to all these games, but geez, there's some good ones coming up.
Yeah, let's go Laurie at York. We saw them win a close one against Toronto. So they are 1-1. I think Laurie is going to be a tough out for everybody this year. York, meanwhile, special teams killed them last week. Their own turnovers, their own fault. Then they had a punt return for a touchdown. I want to see them clean up the self-inflicted wounds. I mean, they have unforced errors in baseball and tennis. Football doesn't really keep track of them, but York has certainly done that. So let's see. I want to see York clean it up because they show some promise each week. They had a huge touchdown last week that gave them the lead right out of the bat. It's just after that, they shot themselves in the foot and were unable to keep that lead.
Yeah, I mean, there's oftentimes when I'm watching the York games back, like there's moments and drives where I'm like, oh, and then I'm like, I wish you could have sustained that a little bit longer. I wish you could have built on that, but there's always moments, there's always flashes. So I guess, yeah, for me going into this week with York, it's let's some of those O's and ahs, let's turn them into drives and touchdowns here. When you have, whether it's even, it doesn't have to be touchdowns, but when you got opportunity to put the points on the board, leg, touchdown, otherwise, throw some points up. It's been crucial.
All right, talk to me about the Laurier Golden Hawks, Connor. Taylor Elgersma has been slowly improving, but what else are you looking for from Michael Falls' Golden Hawk team?
Steady growth, man. That's all I want to see out of both sides of the ball, offense and defense. I mean, yeah, you hit it off the top. Elgersma has delivered. I'll say he's delivered through his first 2 games, done things the right way. I kind of want to see him open it up a little bit more now. We saw that long touchdown to Ben McAlpine. Selfishly, I want some shots, but no, I mean, I also want to keep seeing the success from Tanner Nelmus on the ground, because he looks like he can be a weapon, especially around the goal line. He carries the ball hard.
Yeah, and I mean, this Laurier defense, Connor, they kind of made it a one-dimensional side for the Toronto Varsity Blues. So they are going to look to impose their will as well. And we know when it comes to the CFL draft, there just seems to be one Laurier Golden Hawk every year. And the last couple of years, it's been defense. They've been turning them over. Let's look at, I think, the game of the week this week. The Carlton Ravens at the Queens Gales. They were one of the teams that tried to challenge Queens last year in the OUA East, but they didn't have Tanner DeYoung. And this team has a new identity, old faces, and they're ready to make a challenge, I think. So there's a couple questions for me. How does Carlton stop the run? We saw Toronto run for a lot. Then they had a big confidence boost last week with York having all 3 phases contribute to scoring. That's my question for them, is how do they stop Souls and company in the run game?
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one. I mean, but when you look at both sides of this matchup on the ground, it's going to be tough for both sides of the ball. You mentioned Souls. I mean, he has 96 yards per game. Ferguson, on the other hand, 90.5 per game. Souls has 3 touchdowns on the ground already this season. It is going to be a battle. I think it's going to be ground game and defense. I think it's going to be kind of last score wins. And I expect this one to be a pretty close, I don't want to say low scoring, but like 19-17 type game.
Well, let's not also bury the fact that we have 2 East-West Bowl quarterbacks.
Incredible quarterbacks. Yeah, absolutely. But
both have been looking downfield quite a bit this year. And each game, it seems to be a new highlight reel catch coming out of Carlton. At this point, can anyone stop Kasim Ferdinand? That is the question that has yet to be answered. Queens will look to do it with their stout DBs like Keegan Vanek, Ethan Martin, but certainly looking forward to that one at Richardson. And last but not least, Connor,
the Toronto Varsity Blues, your Toronto Varsity Blues, the Windsor Lancers. Oh man, not quite as long a road trip as everybody else might have to take, but nonetheless, the road trap.
It is a Windsor road trap game. First of all, for U of T, Adam Williams. This guy might be one of the best running backs in U Sports heading into this upcoming CFL draft.
Yeah.
He is super talented, can catch the ball, run with it after, tough and pass pro. I want to see him get back on track. He had under 50 yards last week on the ground, added a couple receptions as well, but I want to see U of T really get after Windsor on the ground, and with Joe DeMore going back to where he used to coach, I think there'll be an extra motivation to do so.
Yeah, no, there certainly will be. Man, Adam Williams is certainly fun to watch. Kind of some Adam McRae vibes there, if I may say so. Just in the ways that they use him, right? Like he just does so much for that offense. Yeah, going to the Windsor side of the ball, they got a pretty dang good running back in their own right. More Zoran this week. I think that's what we're going to see. Absurdly averaging 157 yards a game right now on the ground. That's incredible. But my question for Windsor becomes, we all know that Zorn is going to be the offense. He's going to be the driving force of this offense. So what happens if Toronto has an answer, has a counter, and all of a sudden, man, the Zorn train just isn't chugging today? Like what happens? Where do you become creative? Where do you go to? I kind of want to see the next phase of Windsor's offense, I guess, because they've looked dang good turning around and giving the ball to Zorn. Like dang good.
Well, with that, the Windsor Lancers were able to beat the Guelph Griffins. If you want to go back and check out that game and how they did it, head over to OUA TV. It is free to sign up. And guess what? You can watch all of the games we just talked about this Saturday as well over at OUA TV. Free to sign up. Make sure to check it out. All games, all sports, live and on demand.
And as always, you guys know where you can find us at CF Perspective, at Wade Zank, at Connor R. O'Neill, at OUA Sport. It's going to be a fun weekend. I am really looking forward to it.